The most profound and terrifying economic reckoning of the 21st century is currently unfolding right in front of your eyes, and yet the vast majority of the population is completely, willfully blind to it. We are standing at the absolute precipice of a total, irreversible collapse of the global higher education cartel. An event so unthinkable and catastrophic for the middle class that every elite university, every traditional corporate recruiter, and every heavily indebted academic institution is desperately trying to suppress the mathematical truth. Millions upon millions of young people and mid-career professionals are blindly walking into a massive financial slaughterhouse, voluntarily signing away decades of their future labor to acquire generic university degrees that have just been rendered fundamentally obsolete by the exponential acceleration of artificial intelligence. They are desperately clinging to a 20th century social script that promises security in exchange for compliance, entirely missing the brutal reality that the very cognitive skills they are paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to learn are now available for free to anyone with an internet connection, all to compete in a rigged, pathetic corporate game where the only guaranteed prize is becoming instantly replaceable by a highly efficient algorithm. And if you want to understand why the traditional knowledge worker is mathematically doomed to mass unemployment and total financial paralysis, you only need to look at what they are currently financing. But if you want to receive the unfiltered, contrarian truths that polite society, the government, and the university cartels are desperately trying to hide from you behind a veil of fake intellectual prestige, subscribe to the channel right now, because what comes next will absolutely shatter everything you have been programmed to believe about the value of your education, showing you exactly how the academic institutions you blindly trust are actively using your biological fear of failure to mine your future for their own profit while selling you a completely defective product. The trap is so perfectly disguised as the ultimate intellectual and moral good that people do not even see the iron bars of their own deeply expensive cage. For decades, the university system has operated as a completely unchecked parasitic luxury monopoly, artificially inflating the cost of a piece of paper simply because it acted as a mandatory social toll booth to the middle class. They sold you the profound, comforting illusion that memorizing structured information, following predictable rules, and writing generic essays would permanently guarantee you a secure, high-paying corporate job. But generative artificial intelligence is not just another minor software update or a temporary technological trend. It is the total, instantaneous commoditization of average human cognition. It completely and violently obliterates the fundamental economic premise of the entire traditional educational system, meaning that if your expensive degree trains you to be an average knowledge worker, a generic junior programmer, a standard copywriter, or a middle-tier data analyst, your intrinsic economic value is rapidly, aggressively approaching absolute zero. You are buying into a middle-class script that conditions you through intense mimetic desire to chase the hollow status of a university alumni sticker on your car instead of building actual asymmetric wealth in the real world. You are being explicitly taught to play it incredibly safe, to be a compliant worker devoid of any unique leverage, but the brutal, contrarian truth is that treating a university degree as an infallible shield against technological disruption is a philosophy exclusively for losers and the mathematically illiterate. The herd is being led to the financial slaughterhouse by an entire industry of professors and academic administrators who operate exactly like a dying religion, frantically selling an illusion of historical safety while saddling you with massive, unrecoverable opportunity costs. I know this intimately, not from reading conventional, outdated economics textbooks, but because I saw the very beginnings of this intellectual rot decades ago when I was navigating the early, hyper-competitive days of Silicon Valley and observing the incredibly miserable, highly educated people trapped in prestigious Manhattan law firms, completely devoid of any original thought. I realized then that higher education was a massive, fragile bubble built entirely on mimetic desire and social conformity rather than actual tangible value creation. Which is exactly why I created my own fellowship program to aggressively pay brilliant young minds to drop out of college and build the future. I deeply understood that sitting in a heavily sanitized lecture hall was a massive, unforgivable opportunity cost. But back then, dropping out was merely an asymmetric advantage for the bold. Today, however, With the sudden arrival of autonomous artificial intelligence agents, dropping out of the generic cognitive rat race and aggressively mastering these exponential tools is no longer just an advantage. It is an absolute, non-negotiable survival imperative. I realized that if I had followed the herd's manual, if I had focused my energy on being just another generic graduate instead of deploying capital into contrarian technological bets, I would have never had the liquidity or the vision to build my own monopolies, until I realized that the only way to build true generational wealth is to step completely, unapologetically outside the matrix of conventional academic wisdom. To stop aggressively paying for obsolete knowledge and start deploying your highly valuable time into asymmetric technological leverage, and before we continue to mathematically dismantle this intellectually bankrupt academic system, point by point, tell me right here in the comments which state you are watching from. I want to know exactly how many independent, contrarian thinkers are in this fight with me today who possess the supreme intellectual courage to completely reject the herd and accept that their traditional education is a sunk cost. Write down your city right now and let us form a relentless community of people who truly want to break the mold and achieve absolute financial sovereignty through superior AI-driven capital allocation. Now, I want you to meticulously consider the cold, ruthless logic behind the first massive, fundamentally catastrophic error you are currently making, which is the deeply irrational decision to finance a completely obsolete cognitive degree in the age of artificial intelligence simply to appease your terrified parents and satisfy the mimetic desire of your financially illiterate peer group. The herd willingly falls into this trap because human beings are biologically terrified of stepping off the prescribed path. They entirely fail to understand that artificial intelligence has just reduced the cost of average intelligence to zero, so they blindly take their highly valuable present-day liquid dollars and hand them to an antiquated university system to learn skills that an algorithm can execute in exactly 3 seconds for a fraction of a penny. And the immediate, highly visible consequence of this pathetic herd behavior is that you completely evaporate your liquid capital and your prime years of neuroplasticity. You trap your intellectual wealth entirely inside the suffocating walls of a dying academic institution, rendering you entirely unable to take the asymmetric risks required to build real wealth because you literally have absolutely no capital left to invest, and you are saddled with a skill set that the global market no longer values whatsoever. Let us aggressively look at the brutal, undeniable mathematics of conventional academic wisdom right here and right now. If you are 18 years old and you follow the terrified herd by taking out an $80,000 student loan at an 8% fixed interest rate for a generic computer science, business administration, or communications degree simply because your high school guidance counselor told you it was the safe route, you are completely, irreversibly destroying your financial trajectory before your adult life even begins. You are violently bleeding thousands of dollars a year in pure opportunity cost while learning how to write code or analyze data in a way that artificial intelligence has already perfectly automated. And if you simply stretch that toxic financial behavior out over the 20-year lifespan of that completely non-dischargeable loan, this transforms into over $170,000 evaporated permanently into a broken, unrewarding administrative system that literally hates your independence. You are proudly paying a massive premium for a piece of paper that guarantees you a starting salary in a corporate job that will be entirely eliminated by software within the next 36 months. This is the real, measurable, absolutely devastating cost of your desperate need for emotional validation and societal approval. You foolishly traded exponential growth and sovereign leverage for a tiny reduction in social anxiety. You are literally financing your own obsolescence and guaranteeing your absolute reliance on universal basic income. Now, look at the completely opposite reality. Look closely at the cold, calculating, contrarian path. If you step completely out of the academic matrix today, absolutely refuse to participate in the higher education illusion, stop attending those utterly useless lectures, entirely avoid that $80,000 of toxic, soul-crushing debt, retain your precious mobility and capital, and aggressively allocate that exact same monthly payment amount towards an asymmetric advantage or a high-yield index fund while relentlessly mastering artificial intelligence tools yourself, investing that $500 a month into the S&P 500 with a historical average return of 10% while you build an automated digital business with 0 human employees. In 25 years, you will not just have a meaningless yellowing diploma sitting in a drawer, you will have over $650,000 in highly liquid compounding assets, plus the highly scalable equity of a modern company. The difference is an absolute fortune of pure, unadulterated freedom. The difference between having all your future labor hopelessly trapped by a massive student loan and having a massive liquid war chest ready to deploy into the actual technological frontier. I saw this exact highly predictable scenario play out perfectly with countless contrarian founders who possessed the sheer intellectual courage to completely ignore the academic cartel. They bypassed the university entirely, completely ignored the collective hysterical outrage of their conservative parents and academically brainwashed peers, retained their massive liquid capital and their most productive years, and utilized cutting-edge technology to build software monopolies that generated millions of dollars in highly profitable revenue before they even reached their late 20s, achieving a level of total sovereignty that their debt-burdened, credential-obsessed classmates will never ever see in their entire miserable lifetimes. Contrarian wealth builders absolutely refuse to finance obsolete degrees because they deeply understand a fundamental law of the modern macroeconomic universe, that true wealth is not achieved by slowly accumulating average standardized knowledge. It is an asymmetric leap from 0 to 1 achieved by maximizing highly scalable technological leverage and building systems that completely replace average human labor. It is about building automated monopolies of one and entirely escaping the middle-class intellectual mindset, whereas the herd lives paycheck to paycheck, terrified of the concept of exponential technology, and aggressively takes on massive, unforgivable federal loans to learn outdated information because they completely buy into the moral superiority myth of the university, deeply convinced that holding a bachelor's degree will somehow miraculously protect them from the harsh, highly efficient algorithms of a rapidly changing global digital economy. The mathematical result of these two dramatically diverging paths after 25 years is staggering and completely irrefutable. The first group, the independent AI-leveraged thinkers, commands massive liquid portfolios, extreme operational flexibility, and total autonomy over their time and digital investments, while the second group is hopelessly cash-poor, sitting proudly in a cramped cubicle desperately trying to justify their salary to an algorithm that can do their job better, completely unable to start a business or pivot their career without taking on even more toxic educational debt. The difference is literally millions of dollars in net worth and an entire lifetime of infinite optionality versus an entire lifetime of fragile, totally obsolete anxiety. And the systemic failure of human capital allocation goes even deeper when we examine the second massive, mathematically catastrophic error, which is the total refusal to adapt to the new asymmetric reality. And the deeply delusional belief that accumulating years of generic corporate middle management experience will somehow act as an impenetrable protective moat against exponential technological disruption. The herd genuinely, desperately believes that sitting in a heavily sanitized office for 50 hours a week, organizing spreadsheets, writing mundane emails, and attending meaningless alignment meetings for a decade gives them an intrinsic economic value that a machine cannot possibly replicate. They are completely blinded by the sunk cost of their own mediocrity, entirely failing to comprehend that artificial intelligence does not respect your tenure, it does not care about your corporate loyalty, and it perfectly absorbs and executes the entirety of your 10 years of administrative experience in less than 3 seconds of computing time. The conventional corporate ladder is no longer a path to the American dream. It is a burning building, and the people fighting for a 3% annual promotion are literally fighting for the best seat on a rapidly sinking ship. Let us aggressively do the brutal, unforgiving math on this widely accepted middle-class corporate illusion right now. If you are 35 years old and you voluntarily choose to stay in a comfortable, utterly generic $80,000 a year corporate job simply to appease your mimetic desire for societal stability, trading your most vital. Energetic years for a fixed salary while inflation runs rampant and artificial intelligence hollows out your department, you are instantly destroying your leverage. You are violently bleeding your most precious resource, which is your finite time on this earth. And if you look at the projection for the next 10 years, you will have traded 20,000 hours of your life for a completely stagnant wage that buys less and less every single month. You will have evaporated an entire decade of potential wealth building into a broken corporate system that will unceremoniously lay you off the exact millisecond an algorithmic agent becomes cheaper than your health insurance. This is the real, quantifiable cost of following the herd into the corporate trap. You are trading your prime years of innovation and true capital deployment for a false sense of peace, leaving yourself entirely vulnerable to total obsolescence. Now, look at the cold, calculating, highly asymmetric, contrarian path. If you step completely out of the corporate matrix today, absolutely refuse to participate in this highly vulnerable wage-slave dynamic, voluntarily leave the illusion of safety, ruthlessly utilize autonomous artificial intelligence to build a highly scalable digital service or product with zero human employees, and aggressively allocate your newly generated cash flow towards a high-yield broad market index fund, investing $2,000 a month of your business profits into the S&P 500 with a historical average return of 10%, in exactly 15 years, you will not just have a meaningless title on a corporate resume that nobody reads, you will have nearly $800,000 in highly liquid compounding assets, plus the complete ownership of a highly profitable automated technological monopoly of one. The difference is an absolute fortune of pure, unadulterated freedom. The difference between being a fragile, terrified middle manager begging to keep your job and being an anti-fragile, highly liquid capital allocator who completely dictates their own reality. I saw this exact, highly predictable scenario play out perfectly with brilliant independent thinkers who possess the intellectual courage to completely ignore the social pressure to climb the corporate ladder. They aggressively deployed software leverage, completely ignored the collective outrage of traditional career advisors, retained their absolute autonomy, and used that precise technological leverage to bootstrap digital companies that generated millions of dollars in highly profitable revenue before they even reached their 40s, achieving a level of sovereignty that their exhausted, corporate-dependent, heavily stressed classmates will never see in their entire miserable lifetimes. Contrarian wealth builders absolutely refuse to trade their time for a fixed corporate salary because they deeply understand that your time is fundamentally finite, but software leverage is infinite, and trying to build wealth without asymmetric leverage is exactly like trying to run a marathon with a backpack full of heavy bricks. It is a mathematical impossibility. Whereas the herd lives paycheck to paycheck, terrified of getting fired, and aggressively begs for incremental raises while actual inflation destroys their purchasing power because they completely buy into the moral superiority myth of hard, manual corporate labor, deeply convinced that suffering in a cubicle will somehow protect them from the harsh, highly efficient algorithms of a rapidly changing global digital economy. The mathematical result of these two diverging paths after 15 years is staggering and completely irrefutable. The first group, the independent AI leverage thinkers, commands massive liquid portfolios, extreme operational flexibility, and total autonomy over their time, while the second group is hopelessly cash poor, sitting proudly in a mid-level management position but completely unable to survive a sudden corporate restructuring without facing absolute financial ruin. The difference is literally hundreds of thousands of dollars in net worth, and an entire lifetime of infinite optionality versus an entire lifetime of fragile, illiquid anxiety. And let me present you with a completely different, highly contrarian, and perhaps the most devastating paradigm for the third catastrophic error, which is the panic-driven, fundamentally irrational decision to go back to the university cartel to acquire an even more expensive master's degree or a deeply overpriced Master of Business Administration in a desperate, pathetic attempt to outrun the artificial intelligence revolution. The herd genuinely believes that if their undergraduate degree is losing value, the logical solution is to double down on their massive mistake and purchase a premium credential, completely failing to realize that taking on six-figure debt to learn how to manage humans in an economy that is rapidly replacing humans with software is the ultimate sunk cost fallacy. It is exactly like buying an incredibly expensive course on how to breed faster horses the very day the automobile is invented. Following this traditional state-sanctioned path of endless academic credentialism is exactly like fighting a brutal war of attrition against mathematics itself, where you are absolutely guaranteed to lose your purchasing power and your mind. Let us look at the devastating, completely undeniable mathematics of playing it safe and misunderstanding macroeconomic technological shifts. If you are 30 years old and you panic deciding to take out $120,000 in toxic, non-dischargeable federal student loans at a 7% fixed interest rate to get an elite Master of Business Administration degree simply because a corporate recruiter told you it would make you more competitive, you are violently bleeding your future purchasing power every single year. You are taking highly valuable dollars and giving them to an institution that is teaching you entirely obsolete management theories. And if you stretch out that brutal repayment schedule over 15 years, aggressively throwing $1,500 a month at that debt, this transforms into a massive, catastrophic loss of capital. Evaporating over $270,000 in pure opportunity cost and interest payments directly into a broken, fee-extracting academic cartel, this is the real horrifying cost of your total failure of imagination and your blind, obedient trust in conventional, intellectually lazy academic advice. You are literally paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to become entirely irrelevant. Now, if you step out of the matrix today, completely stop feeding the higher education bubble, aggressively educate yourself on asymmetric risk and generative artificial intelligence for entirely free on the internet, and invest that exact same $1,500 a month into high-conviction digital assets, disruptive technologies, or the S&P 500 with a potential historical return of 10%, in 15 years you will have over $600,000 in highly liquid capital. While the original master's degree you foolishly wanted to buy would have been completely rendered obsolete by the 5th generation of artificial intelligence, the difference is not just financial, the difference is total. Irreversible liberation from the state, the academic cartel, and the corporate machine. The people who actually win in this country, the contrarians who dictate the future of human progress, do not ever wait for an academic institution to validate their intelligence with a piece of expensive paper. They understand that formal credentials are a tax on the insecure, they take extreme ownership, they completely bypass the academic hierarchy, and they build absolute monopolies of one by weaponizing new technologies before the universities even know how to create a syllabus for them. Contrarian wealth builders violently seek exponential returns and utilize technological leverage because they deeply understand that trying to build wealth by competing with everyone else in a high-debt, high-credential paradigm is a mathematical guarantee of achieving only average, deeply mediocre results. The herd lives paycheck to paycheck and hopes that their expensive diploma will protect them because they completely buy into the safe, educated myth, terrified of taking a single intelligent risk in the real marketplace. The result after 15 years is completely binary. The first group commands vast fortunes, total autonomy, and true power by using capital to build their own digital empires. The second group is drowning in the system, completely reliant on a broken corporate ladder, proudly holding a framed master's degree but possessing absolutely zero liquid wealth and zero actual market leverage. The difference is generational wealth and millions of dollars. So what exactly do you do from now on? How do you mathematically and philosophically escape this deeply entrenched systemic trap and weaponize your mind in the age of machines? You need an immediate, ruthless, and entirely uncompromising action plan, a complete mental checklist to irreversibly break your decades of social and academic conditioning. First, you must step entirely out of the credential matrix in the next 24 hours, completely stop applying for useless academic programs, halt your aggressive pursuit of corporate approval, stop liquidating your vital seed cash to appease your intellectual anxiety, and completely stop caring entirely about what mediocre, heavily indebted losers and your conventional family members think of your contrarian, highly leveraged lifestyle. Then you must aggressively find your asymmetric advantage, take that massive, newly freed time and capital, and deploy your resources ruthlessly this very month into acquiring a specific, highly scalable technological skill that has absolutely infinite leverage. You must master the algorithms that are replacing the middle class. You must stop spreading your finite energy across 50 mediocre, safe corporate ideas and concentrate all of your capital and intense focus on the one single contrarian thing that actually works. There are absolutely no more excuses for following the herd because the historical information asymmetry that used to heavily protect the elite institutions has been completely destroyed by the internet. The knowledge to use leverage like the wealthy billionaire class is entirely free, but the execution requires supreme, unrelenting intellectual courage. You are facing a dramatic, completely irreversible choice right now. Looking down two completely divergent macroeconomic paths, you can confidently and comfortably continue on the exact path of the deeply terrified herd, taking your precious liquid capital and handing it to academic institutions to buy obsolete degrees, begging middle managers and algorithms for incremental promotions because you have absolutely no cash cushion to quit, trading your finite time for depreciating fiat dollars, and ultimately retiring at 65 years old with a broken body, a mind full of useless facts, and an entirely empty bank account. Forced to compete for absolute scraps and completely reliant on a failing economic system that never, ever cared about you in the first place. Or you can wake up today, look the mathematical reality of the artificial intelligence revolution directly in the face, aggressively reject the pathetic competition, stop doing exactly what everyone else is doing, embrace intelligent technological leverage, and start building true exponential wealth right now. The ultimate formula for absolute financial failure is simply doing what everyone else is doing, treating formal education like a moral imperative instead of a deeply flawed financial transaction, and expecting a different, exceptional result in an economy that only rewards the extraordinary. The traditional academic and corporate employment pipeline is the absolute biggest, most destructive psychological and financial trap in modern human history, heavily designed by the elites to keep the middle class completely unleveraged, deeply in debt, and highly docile, and your active, conscious refusal to participate in it. Your aggressive decision to hoard your capital and deploy it asymmetrically through software is your absolute greatest weapon. Time is rapidly running out to secure your financial independence before the algorithmic system completely consolidates its power over the terrified, obsolete middle class. If this video finally shattered your conventional, comfortable illusions about education and money today, if you are finally ready to step entirely out of the herd and utilize capital and technology exactly like the elite, leave your like down below, subscribe to the channel right now, and share this with someone who desperately needs to wake up from the academic matrix. Because blindly following the crowd and financing useless degrees in America today is a mathematically guaranteed path to total, irreversible financial ruin. You must absolutely stop competing, you must violently start inventing, you must weaponize the very technology that terrifies you, and you must make the definitive, permanent leap from 0 to 1.